If I'm being honest, Exodus 2 is a really cool chapter about the birth of Moses, and I honestly, I understand that there's a whole bunch of stuff about it, but Exodus 2, 1 through 10 is awesome because basically Moses is born, he's a good child, the adult takes it and takes the child and saves the child as best they can. Pharaoh's daughter bathes the child, and it's just a beautiful um, it's just a beautiful story. And then Moses grows up and he kills somebody, which is awful. But Moses went and lived in Midian, where he sat by a well, priest of Midian, and they came to draw the water. An Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds. He even drew water for us. And then they bring in Moses. This is about hospitality, which is something that in the ancient Greek myths you'll totally see often. Now remember, Israel and Greece are both basically near the Mediterranean. They may have had some contact with each other, but I'm not saying that the hospitality rules influenced each other. I'm saying that hospitality is a very important part of any religion that is used to help discuss the way that people should act and behave. Hospitality was discussed in the Bible previously, Sodom and Gomorrah, the Tower of Babel. Even you can argue hospitality with potentially the Garden of Eden, where showing hospitality to the serpent may have been considered going too far with hospitality by allowing that person to change what happens in your household after having been told what to do. Because ultimately, Adam and Eve were guests in God's Garden of Eden. But it's really cool because it shows what happens. And the daughters of the priest, I believe it's Jethro here, the daughters of the priest didn't bring Moses back originally until they were told to. So it shows that, hospitality is not always important. And they thought that Moses was an Egyptian, which is, I think, very interesting because Moses thought he was an Egyptian. He had no idea he was a Hebrew. He won't have any idea he's a Hebrew until, I think, 40 years later, which to me is wild. That you can go through 80 years of your life not knowing about your culture, and then end up spending the last basically 40 and a half years of your life being the leader of said culture and taking them out of slavery, which I think is pretty cool that happened. One thing that I find very interesting is very specifically, I'm going to pull it up right now. It's um, this part where he said, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the baby and nursed him. And then when the child grew older and she took him to Pharaoh's daughter and he became her son, she named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." Um, that's interesting, right there, because Moses wasn't the Pharaoh's daughter's son at that point until he became there, and then it was like that's really interesting. That makes me think that you're not the child of someone until they claim you, and that while you're a child, whoever's breastfeeding you could be your um parent. So that's interesting. I'm not saying that that's what it is, but that's just plain text interpretation of what it might be. Um, yeah. But with all that, it's like really interesting to see. And then of course Moses kills somebody who's treating somebody poorly. Um, um, oh right, Moses does actually become Hebrew earlier, and then yeah. So during that long period, the king of Egypt died. And then so they go out, and then the Hebrews, or the Israelites, groaned in their slavery. And they went up. God heard their groaning and remembered His covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So God looked on the Israelites and was concerned with them. Now that's really interesting to me. That little end of Exodus is because essentially it tells you that God can forget things and not remember things. So that makes me think God isn't a perfect being. So yeah, what do you think of that? What do you think of that with God not being a perfect being there? I don't know what to think about that, but I really like Exodus 2 as a storytelling thing, as well as just I think it's really cool for hospitality. everybody, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and you can follow me on Patreon for $1 a month. And Mariners recap videos will be published 12 to 14 hours before they'll be published on YouTube on there. You'll also have some access to things that I write, well, some blog posts. I might use it as a website, and you can book me on Cameo. You can follow me on Instagram, and well as Blue Sky at Sammy5436. Thank you for watching.